Hi everyone, how are you all today? I hope you're grand. It's that time of year for harvesting and storing our onions. Now, could there be a more humble vegetable to grow in the kitchen garden? Maybe the potato is more humble. Yes, it's a humble vegetable, but it's in pretty much every single meal I make. So for me, it's well worth growing them. I know people say they're so cheap in the shops, but firstly, I don't want to spend any money in the shops. And secondly, my onions taste better than shop onions. And they're organic. I know everything that's gone into them. So in terms of harvesting and storing, I'm just going to swing you guys around to the reds because they're still in the ground. So, if you see a lot of the tops have flopped over, this is an indicator that it's about time to start harvesting. The tops are flopping over, they'll start to yellow off a bit, and that's the stage where we want to take them out of the ground very gently with a little fork or trowel underneath. Just give them a little flip up, get rid of the worst of the dirt, and then we're going to take them into the shed to dry, which I'm going to just show you in a second, and then we'll take it from there. So, once you've lifted your onions and knocked off the worst of the dirt, it's then time to go through the whole lot to give them a really thorough inspection, and any that are showing signs of, say, damage or little white specks, which is a sign of rot, mould, that sort of thing, set them to one side, don't store them. Take them home, use them ASAP. If there are quite a lot of them that you've got like that, but there's still quite a chunk that's usable on the onions, it's well worth getting them chopped up and frozen. They won't store dry like the rest of them, but all is not lost. You can freeze them. So let's assume you've lifted them, knocked off the worst of the dirt, set aside any that are looking a bit hinky. Then you get to the stage where you want to hang them to dry. So some of you may have seen the video I made a couple of weeks where I've made this drying rack. Very simply, it is mesh, you see the mesh there, hammered onto this wooden frame, which is now, with the help of a few batons at the side, just resting in my shed, and then when it's out of use it will lift up and go back to the ceiling. So you want to space your onions so that each onion has a little bit of room around it so that the air can circulate. And then if we look from underneath, you can see how they've got their space. Oh, it's a little forest of onion fronds. That's a very happy sight. You know, if you think about all the work you put into growing things, it's well worth taking the time to get things stored properly, because the last thing you want is a load of spoil in the winter. So these guys have been hanging now for These guys have been hanging now for about a week, and you can see how the foliage, there's a tiny bit of green still there, but you can see how it's gone yellow and it's beginning to be a bit crinkly. You can almost hear that as well, can't you? So the idea behind this is we want to cure the onions. Now you'll hear that expression quite often. Curing something. We want to cure our potatoes, we want to cure our onions. Essentially what we're talking about is we're giving them a tough skin. We're drying them out, toughening up their skins, because the skin is the package, if you like, that's going to keep them preserved. Now the idea behind hanging them and letting them dry like this is that and they will probably, as I said, they've had 1 week, they will probably have about another 2 to 3 weeks, and the idea is is as they dry out, the skins shrink, and it's especially important, let's go up and under and have a look, it's especially important around, let me show you on this one, it's especially important around the neck. So as this shrinks, it actually seals itself off. So we'll give them another, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, and then we can get the next stage started. Just a word on the conditions that they're in at the moment. They're in my shed. It's a very dry space. It's also warm but not hot. So, for instance, don't do this in your greenhouse. If you try and do this in your greenhouse, it's far too hot in there, and what will happen is they will sweat and they basically won't store well. So choose somewhere that's warmish, that's dry at this stage, and then when we go to the next stage, we'll be looking for dry and cool. So let's get on to the next stage. So I'm cracking on with getting these onions stored today. I'm still on the whites because I desperately need to get the reds out of the ground. Now they've had about 3 weeks of drying in the onion rack inside the shed. So all I'm doing for now is I'm just taking off the loose sort of bits of skin. Have a little pull down where the foliage was, still a bit long, give it a quick bit of a trim. While I'm going through them all like this, I'm kind of very roughly sorting them by size as well, because they do range from, let me show you, they do range from whoppers like that to tiddlers. So when I string them all up, I want them in roughly sort of similar sizes. Also, as I'm doing this, just running my hands over them as I'm loosening off the loose skin. I'm also feeling how solid they are. If you feel some that feel a bit squishy anywhere, don't store them. Get them home, use them straight away, or get them home, chop them open. If you can't use them straight away, get them frozen. We don't want to store any that are even slightly soft. Oh, they're so beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'm leaving this little bit of neck on, just a few inches, because that is what's going to help us tie it into the string to hang them in a minute. Isn't it a great time of year? It's all happening, it's so busy. Love it. All this hard work come to fruition. I'm also just gently tugging off the last bit of any roots that have stayed. It's not a job to do in a hurry. Not when you've got a whole wheelbarrow full of them. Right, I'm going to carry on with the rest of these and have you guys join me back in a moment when we start to string them. Just one more little point before we go on to stringing them. Not only do I want to have a feel around to make sure there's no sort of soft squidgy bits, the other thing is there will be some possibly where if you feel around the neck it still feels quite green. You can feel that there's a bit of firm but give. It's not, you can feel that it's not really dry. Again, don't store it because it's going to rot there if you store it. So have a little feel of the neck, and if it's still like this one, it's quite juicy, fleshy, again, that one's going to get set aside. It'll come home with me. It'll be one of the first to use. Now, to finish this up before we start stringing. Now for the fun bit. It's a little bit fiddly, this first one. Get in there. So depending on time, I sometimes string them, I sometimes just hang them up in a string bag. Honestly, it just depends what hurry I'm in. Oh, my first one wants to come off. Stay on. I haven't got very long neck on that. When I'm kind of pulling off the dry bits, sometimes I do lose too much neck. If I lose too much neck, then it will be going into a string bag. Once you've got the first couple in, it gets a little bit easier. I'm actually only going to do quite short strings like this, just to make it easy for me to take them to and fro, because most of them I'll probably leave in the shed and then just literally grab a little string to take home as and when I need them. Okay, I'm going to try and show you a really simple way of doing it. It's like a cheat way, if you like. I've got my length of string, I've made a loop at the top for hanging, and I've literally then tied the string to this first onion. I hope this is going to show up and be clear. Oops, where's all my onions? So these are some of my tiddlers. So the next one, it's kind of hard to explain, you know, when you just do something with your fingers, but I sort of bring the string right up close to the top of the neck. I wrap the neck, whoops, it's going to be so hard to demonstrate, wrap the neck round it and under it sort of a couple of times, and then just sort of push it, firm it down. Next one, exactly the same. So I'm going to sort of go between these two now. So next there, wrap it under and around, and then just push it, firm it down the string. And carry on. I was going to say ad infinitum, but don't do too many, because the last thing you want is for your string to break and everything go crashing down. So you'll see all sorts of methods, some with 4 strings, some with 2. I've done a loop of 2 for my really big ones. This one just a single string. This is really easy though, so I'll just show again. So the neck's behind the string, wrap the neck under, a couple of times under, then where there's a gap, just push it down and slot it in sort of between 2 of its neighbours. Easy peasy. Have a go, that's the main thing. As with anything in life, just give it a go and have fun. And if it doesn't go right the first time, just try again. I think I need a glass of Vimto after this, it's getting warmer. So, I'm going to carry on with these, get all the reds out, get the reds hung in the drying rack, and then start thinking about what to store next. So for now, I'll say cheerio, this time properly. I'll see you all again soon, I hope. Take care. So precious. happy days.